Caleb Tallman, Brandon Stevens here with you live at Murphy High School. How you doing tonight, Brandon?
Well, it's Friday night, and it's the greatest place to be at a football stadium. It doesn't matter whether you're in Hayesville, Cherokee, under the Big Oaks, Bob Hendricks Stadium, David Gentry Field, wherever you happen to, or Memorial Stadium. We'll even give Swain a little prop there. But anywhere you can be at a football game tonight, that's a good place. A little soggy in most places, but hey, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, probably soggy everywhere but Cherokee because they got that turf. They're the only local team with turf playing tonight at their home stadium. So what we're going to do tonight, folks, we're going to go through a couple of our local games. And since we're live here at Murphy, just for the pregame show, we're not going to be live for the game this week, but Brandon Stevens and I will be bringing you all kinds of coverage through the Team F Line Sports Twitter and Facebook. We will go through a couple of our games. We're going to start off with a pretty big matchup over in Cherokee tonight. Cherokee is hosting Robbinsville. And I think right now, Brandon, you can tell me your thoughts are. I really don't know a lot about Robbinsville in comparison to the rest of the conference because they've played a bunch of teams that no one knows anything about.
Well, of course, this year, you're missing that Nathaniel Collins. You're missing a couple other folks like Alex Hooper, but they're still good. They're a good threat, and that pass or the motion that goes through with quarterback Gross, he's awesome. Also like the halfback play or actually the running back play. This is a good team. If I were Cherokee, I would press them and I just blitz and go in, and they're capable of that.
Yes.
And going into that now, Cherokee on the other hand, if you look at them, sometimes we thought it'd be like a one-man show with Don Bradley, but no, they've got Chase Calhoun, Elijah Waddy, Bernheisel's on the front line. These guys are good as well.
Their line play is much improved this year.
Well, and that's key. Now, the big thing is that in the past, Cherokee's had some problems with defense, especially pass coverage. But this year, they're more better. Let's put it that way. The other thing I think that just coming right down to it, the atmosphere, you've got two Cherokee communities. There's a lot of spirit there from Snowbird to the whole kind of Cherokee over there. So I think that this is going to be a close game, and it's going to be, if I wasn't here, I'd be over Cherokee and Robbinsville for that football game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big news coming in the week is if you're a Robbinsville fan, you're real worried. How healthy is Cutler Adams? We don't get official injury designations in high school, but I don't think it's a secret to anyone. It made its way all the way onto the local message boards on NC Preps that the young man has a back injury. And if you looked on the message boards last night, they were saying he's not playing. And then you look this afternoon, they're saying, oh, he's good to go. And you saw it on his social media, thanking the good Lord that he's ready to play tonight. And so 100% Cutler Adams, don't come at me, Andrews fans, but may be the best back in Western North Carolina. He's in the argument. But if he's a 60% Cutler Adams, what else does Robbinsville have to offer? Does Cage Williams get more carries tonight? Do they let Gross throw it a little bit more tonight if he's not 100%?
Oh, I think Williams has got the move, or at least that's where I would be going.
Yeah,
I'd preserve Cutler Adams because specifically, you want him back for next week.
Yes,
when Robbinsville comes here, and that's going to be a bigger game also. So you got to think a little bit about that. I would be heading down that way if I were leadership in Robbinsville.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. But you say that, and then all of a sudden, but we looked last week. Cherokee held Murphy to a 1-point game, and some may even say that it took a little bit of luck for the Bulldogs to win that one. Obviously Peyton McCracken, one of the best athletes in the conference, made a play, and Cherokee couldn't make the stop on an accidental 2-point conversion, we'll call it. But I think what we see is that the conference this year, 1 through 6, Rosman's no longer here, so now we're a 6-team conference. I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this, Brandon, because Jake and I have discussed it all year on the show. Our conference this year seems to be as competitive 1 through the bottom as it's ever been.
I would say so. I mean, number one, it seems like all of these teams are powered by a good quarterback. That's number one.
Yeah.
And so you can't take away from Logan Caldwell to Kellen Rumfeld, who'll be playing here behind us, to Gross, to anybody else in this conference. So that's number one. And then you've got areas where the defense and the offensive lines, they've drastically improved. The one that might be just a little bit on the softer side, and I say this only because they're very young, and that's Hayesville, smaller, younger line. But outside of that, skill players do well. and you just can't count anybody out. And it used to be, as historically we look back into the 80s, the 90s, and to the 2000s. Well, who were gimme games? Andrews, Cherokee, sometimes a Hayesville. That's where
Rosman when they were
Rosman. But now you can't say that, not at all. And
no, especially I think as football has changed, it's not. Some of these teams obviously ground and pound really well. You go down just a couple miles down the county from where we're at in Andrews, and they've got as good a ground and pound attack as anyone, not just in our area, but in the entire state, especially at the 1A level. But I think as some of these teams have switched to spread offenses, or really, like when you look at it, and even Andrews, every one of these teams in our conference, they will go shotgun spread at some point. Every single team, and teams are throwing the ball more. I think you see part of that being the parity, because there's a lot of good quarterbacks in our conference. And, if a Logan Caldwell or a Don Bradley comes out and plays one of their best games tonight, that could propel them. We saw that last week when Murphy played, that Don Bradley, he looked like, early 2000s Michael Vick out there with some of his plays, and he single-handedly was able to keep Cherokee in it till very late in the game.
Well, a couple things that, like you're saying, spread them out, get 3 on one side, 1 on the other. The one thing that plays into that, they simulate some speed, and that's a little bit tougher for teams who are traditional like Murphy to get back there and get that speed. You get a bubble screen, a slip screen somewhere, and boom, you're gone. And that plays against. That's probably why you see more of spread offense, particularly against a Murphy. But on the other hand, one thing that they don't do is sometimes they neglect having that a strong tight end position. That puts a lot of pressure on linebackers and puts a lot of stress on teams. Well, once again, like a Murphy, but yet you've got good players here. And this side, and Murphy traditionally has come out and really gotten to the backfield. They've had people that can bust through the line and somehow outspeed it. Now, every once in a while, Murphy will get burnt here and there. But on the other hand, it's been impressive to watch how they speed to the ball. Let me ask you this. So we were finishing up talking about the Robbinsville Cherokee game. Any prediction for that one? Because I'm thinking it's going to be relatively low. Now, I won't say who or what, but I think it's going to be something like a 21-18 or something like that.
Well, one, I wish I knew the health of Cutler Adams. But all things considered, I think Cherokee's on the rise, but Robbinsville hasn't dropped off much. So I agree it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to have to go with Robbinsville. Every time I pick against Robbinsville, I'm wrong, so I'm not going to make that mistake tonight.
I'm not choosing a side. I'm just saying this is probably going to be the spread.
Yeah,
in there. Somewhere around 21-18. That 3-point spread is what we're seeing. What we talk about next?
We're going to go and talk about our Team F Lion Sports game of the week, and that is Andrews at Swain. That's a big time game, Brandon. Every single week it feels like we're saying, okay, if Andrews is for real, this is the game they need to win to prove they're for real. And at this point, I'm tired of people talking like that, and I'm one of those people that was guilty of it early in the year. Andrews is for real, whether win or lose at Swain tonight. But every single night they come out, it's another prove-it game for them to prove that we're not just a much better Andrews team. We're the top dog in the conference right now. And until they get beat, I think if you had a conference power rankings, Andrews is number 1. And then, Swain's coming off a week where they had to cancel last week because of COVID. So do they have all their players back? We don't know. Hopefully both teams are very healthy. We'd hope to see the best game possible, but that's a game where Andrews wins, and you're going to say, wow, they really are at top of the conference. And if Swain wins, maybe Swain's off a 1-year rebound. They had a bad year last year, interim coach, and now are they just back to being a top 2, top 3 team in the conference after 1 year? If they want to be, they got to win this game tonight. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts here. One, it's a lot of the atrophy that's going into the Swain play. So, you've been off. You've been a little shaky. You're trying to find your place on the field. To me, I'm probably going to lean to Andrews. Number one, I like, I've said this over and over and over, and it's like a broken record. I love Donovan Bateman, the way he makes things move. I'm glad to see that you guys chose him as one of the players this week.
Yeah, Team F Lion Sports Player of the Week for Andrews was Donovan Bateman. And the thing is, Donovan doesn't put up huge stats, but, man, he gets the ball to the right spot. And right now, like, to take another team, for example, Robbinsville's struggling with that. They're putting the ball on the ground a lot. They're fumbling and having issues with that on simple stuff. It's not, big trick plays that they're fumbling. It's handoffs. It's center exchanges. Donovan Bateman whether it's a simple handoff, whether he's supposed to fake it and tuck it, he is getting the ball to the right spot 9 times out of 10. And you're seeing him progress as a passer. If he continues to progress as a passer and can hit a long one every game a couple times, man, Andrew's gonna be tough to beat.
Well, the bigger thing here too is when you look at that. All right, come out of tonight with a win in Swain. You're 6-0. Your confidence is just climbing, and they're going to need all that. Of course, the last game they'll play in Andrews against Murphy.
Yeah.
Leading up to that, I mean, it's just big time to have that confidence in that ride. So when you're something and hey, the wins at your back, man. It's so I like that. But also, once again, I think that regardless of where they played that game in Andrews or played it in Bryson City, this one's probably going to be handily. It could get ugly. I would almost want to say that they're about 2 or 3 touchdowns separate those two teams.
Yeah, and I think with Andrews being favored in that matchup, one of the things it's a great equalizer. We're standing here on David Gentry Field, and it's wet. I'm guessing Swain's field is not much drier, and so when you think about that, Swain struggled to move the ball consistently on the ground this year, while Andrews, that's exactly what they do. And so if Swain's air attack is slowed down by a muddy field, and it's going to have to be a ground and pound game. I said this in our Western North Carolina Friday night podcast show this week. It's going to be really hard for Swain to move the ball because Andrews has some really sure tacklers at linebacker, and then they're able to run the ball.
Have you walked the field much at Memorial Stadium?
It's been a year or two.
So let me tell you. So when Boyce Dietz was there, I remember before he left and went to Silva in like 97 or so, one of the things that he did, he shored up that field, and it drains really well. Now, there was this mixture of weird grass out there, and I think some of the coaches over time since he left changed that up a little bit. Now it might drain a little bit differently, but the one thing is that it's not like David Gentry Field here. We'll see little pools and ponds all over the field, and this field doesn't drain as well. But that's one of the better draining fields.
Gotcha, so especially for a grass field. But regardless of it, at the end of the day, I just think, especially after I saw Hazel's offense, which Hazel's offense has been able to move the ball on most teams all year, regardless of the opponent, has struggled inside the red zone. But, man, Andrew's got a good secondary, and they've got really good tackling linebackers. And so I go back to the thought of I think Swain's going to struggle to get points on the board. And so if Swain wants to win, maybe they have a Smoky Mountain type game because they beat Smoky Mountain this year where, maybe they find a way to get a defensive touchdown and they have to win 10-7 or 10-8. I think that's the only way Swain finds a way to win that game. But as is my pick's Andrews, and I'm guessing it's probably yours as well.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. A couple, 2 or 3 touchdown separation between Andrews winning over Swain County. This will be big for them this evening. That's my prediction.
Well, folks, what we're going to do real quick, we are going to take a quick commercial break, just 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll be back with you, and we're going to preview North Henderson Franklin just a little bit, and then we're going to get to the game where we're at as we watch the Murphy Bulldogs warm up behind us. Caleb Tallman for Brandon Stevens. This is a Team FYN Sports Western North Carolina pregame show. We'll be right back with you.
Hey girl, back so soon?
Yeah.
3rd time this morning.
Feeling too familiar with the bathroom these days? It's not just you.
Hey girl, look who made it 15 minutes.
At Erlanger Urology, we make it easy to talk about overactive bladder and treatments that work.
Hey girl, you not coming in?
No, I'm good.
Well, okay. I'll be here, because I'm stuck.
Learn more at itsnotjustyou.com. Erlanger Urology.
In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Caleb Tom and Brandon Stevens back with you live for the Western North Carolina pregame show presented to you by Team F Line Sports. Got 2 more Western North Carolina games to preview. First, we're going to start off just talking a little bit about North Henderson. Franklin's traveling out to North Henderson tonight. Brandon, we know Franklin has lost 2 really tough games in the last couple of weeks. 1-possession games where they had chances to win it in both games and came up short in both games.
I was surprised about that Tuscola game. I thought that would be like, are you playing in the pits? And that would be just a really nice game for Franklin, but it just didn't happen.
Well, I mean, and the big story in that game was Tuscola had 2 kick return touchdowns. As we get to talk about our game here in just a minute, like that's something if Hayesville wants to have a chance to pull an upset tonight, like Tuscola did at Franklin, that's special teams is a big facet of the game that people often forget about. They'll say, I've got this vaunted defense or I've got this vaunted offense. And then it's like, well, good, but you gave up 3 special teams touchdowns or you got 2 special teams touchdowns given up and you got a punt block. Those are the type of plays, especially at the high school level, Brandon. I think special teams at the high school level, if you have a really good special teams unit, it can take your team from that B level to A level. And then on the same thought, if you don't have a good special teams unit, it can really hurt you. I mean, we saw it. Georgia Force had a kick return touchdown against y'all, and Georgia Force had a kick return touchdown against Hayesville.
Well, take it last week with the Murphy-Cherokee game. That came right down to understanding why special teams are important. Whether you go for 2 or you put 1 in the uprights or you miss it, it can be the ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. But and you can share with me your thoughts. I have a feeling that Franklin's going to get back on the winning track tonight. And part of me almost feels bad for North Henderson because the Panthers might be taking out some of their last 2 weeks' frustrations on a lesser opponent this week. And I could be wrong. Maybe they'll struggle with special teams again because that's been their Achilles heel this year. But all things considered, I think the Massey ratings have a 20.5-point spread favoring Franklin, even though it's an away game. And I'd say that's fairly accurate.
That doesn't surprise me. The one thing about North Henderson is that over time, I look at them and I would fear them more in basketball and things like baseball or something like that. But football has just not been in their forte. But going over there, I think that Franklin has the fire in their belly, and they'll probably come out with a win. And I would agree with that spread. 20 points, maybe just a little bit more. I might even go 24.
Yeah, and so I think we're both picking Franklin. And let's get to the game that you and I are both excited to talk about as we're here at David Gentry Field, and we see the Yellow Jackets and the Bulldogs warming up behind us. Yellow Jackets are wearing their white uniforms, black pants tonight, and the Bulldogs
all blacked out.
All blacked out, always looking good, all blacked out at home. So we'll start with you, Brandon. Just give us an update on the Bulldogs for this week, how their practices and stuff went. I know you find yourself here at practice a couple times a week typically. Just give us a little Bulldog preview for tonight.
So this evening, coming out of that Cherokee game, 29-28, it was a little tough lifting the spirits. You had rain, you're practicing in the gym. So the practices were probably not as what the boys and especially the coaches wanted to see this week. But they know that Hayesville's coming, and it's going to be like, I think as I wrote up this week, we're stirring Yellow Jackets, and we've got to just find out what the nest is going to come after us with the Murphy Bulldogs. So by midweek, the Bulldogs really trying to pick up their spirits and get into practicing. But the big thing that they're looking at, Caleb, here is that you've got a pretty good quarterback. You can't mistake Logan Caldwell. He's able to rifle it out there. He's also he'll throw at you a design quarterback run. So it keeps you guessing. But this is not something that Murphy hasn't seen in the past couple of weeks, whether it's been Cherokee, Georgia Force, Rabun County going up to Cherokee High School in Tennessee, Cherokee North. So all the way around, they're waiting for this one because they're ready for the Hayesville Yellow Jackets. And this one, once again, it depends on where you put the pressure from the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I look at Hayesville this week, on one hand, Logan Caldwell had a tough week last week, Brandon, threw 2 interceptions, played his worst game of the year. And here's the thing, I'm not hating on the young man because he's one of the best young men, one of the toughest kids you'll ever meet. And Hazel would have no one else they would want at quarterback other than him. But it's almost a good thing. He had a bad game last week. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't expect him to have a bad game 2 weeks in a row. I'd expect him to come out firing this week. And if Hayesville has any chance, I mean, let's be honest, Brandon, we're both reporters. You know, you like your Bulldogs, I like my Yellow Jackets. But at the end of the day, as reporters, we have to be analytical and try to be a little unbiased at times. If Hazel's going to have a chance, it's going to be on the shoulders of Logan Caldwell. And if he has a big 400-yard passing night, that is how Hayesville most likely has an opportunity to pull an upset. But I also know, and you can share with me a little bit, Hayesville and Murphy both are missing pieces this week. Not a ton, but, you know, we found out last week Jake McTaggart violated team rules and suspended for last week's game, suspended for this week's game as well. I'm not quite sure. We've not heard an official how long he will be out, but I know he won't be playing tonight. And then tell us a little about the Bulldogs. Just from what I've seen a couple of your guys that aren't in shoulder pads and helmets tonight. It looks like Chandler Wood's not playing tonight. How's the health of the Bulldogs?
So just talking about, you mentioned Chandler, and that was one, you won't see the orange cleats move across the field. Now, in the Cherokee game, little injury, and early on in the week, we didn't know if it was a sprain, a break, and really I haven't had a chance to talk to Chandler because he's stepped out. He's also getting himself ready for the Army, so he's been out with a few tactical things with getting ready to work for Uncle Sam. On the other hand, we did have just a couple of others that were out, but really at this point, we haven't had first string players go out, except for we had Ryland Smith that was out, but he's back and he's healthy, and so that was a big piece in that Cherokee game to have a big man up front to get through the line, and that so that was all in the works. The other thing that probably may be just a little gimpy is you talk to Kellen Rumfelt, and he says, yeah, there's a little twinge in the shoulder, and every once in a while when I get that hard pass, I can feel a little jolt, but no, he's all right though. So otherwise, health of the team seems to be actually pretty good at this point. Yeah, the big thing here is if you get some good blocking and Chandler breaks it out, he'll move. But you still have to. You got the reliance of Ty Laney. You've got Juwan Allen. And a few others.
Hunter Stalkup's been stepping up.
Oh, Hunter Stalkup has been. He's had a couple of really nice pass receptions. He's a kid that can really move and juke around this field. So I look for some good things from him. Otherwise, here's the big deal for the Murphy Bulldogs is when you look at this, they know Hayesville's coming. They're wanting to get a good win over here at Bob Hendricks Stadium, and so on that, I think you're going to bring both A games here tonight. To me, it's going to break down to some really silly things that probably are obvious. Don't make errors. Don't turn over the ball. Execute and play your assignments. And that's going to be the big key. Otherwise, it just comes down to like, can you outspeed me? Can I block you? On down the way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we'll see tonight. Jake and I talked about that a little bit on our weekly show. Was the Achilles heel for both Hayesville and Murphy have been at times when they've played really well. They've played really well, but their errors when they've not played well are big penalties, stalling out drives, and turnovers. And when either team doesn't have one of those things happen, they've shown they can play with most teams. But and I think that'll be something interesting to see if Hayesville can come out and play a flawless game, no turnovers, very few penalties, and Murphy has 2 turnovers and a couple of 10 and 15 yarders. That's how you leave a team like Hayesville in the game. And I think we saw that at Cherokee last week. I said it 2 weeks ago on our show that Murphy needed to take control of that game early before they got to the second half, especially by the third quarter, because if you're at Cherokee and you have time, all of a sudden you're going to leave Cherokee in the game and they're going to think they have a chance and they're going to play you even tougher in the fourth quarter. And that's exactly what happened. And my other big question, you can share your thoughts on it as we close out here, is the weakness for Murphy's defense this year has definitely been their pass coverage. As a whole defensive backfield, I'd say they have some good individual performers, but as a solid back 4 or 5, that's where they've struggled at this year. So can Murphy's pass defense step it up tonight? Because we know Hazel's going to pass it 75% of the time. They're not gonna run it between the tackles all night. That's not what the Yellow Jackets do. So is the Bulldogs secondary up to the challenge? Because they struggled at times last week against a good passing quarterback in Don Bradley at Cherokee.
Well, you know that probably according to my notes, looking at this is probably going to be like, what would you think, 80-20 passing to handing off for Hazel?
Yeah.
And so that means you got to be ready. If you're Murphy, are you in man coverage or do you zone it up a little bit? And that's where you get burnt. You can't live in the man, and this is one thing that Murphy tends to struggle with, teeter-tottering back and forth, man zone, and you know the pass is coming.
Do you have a prediction for us tonight, Brandon, as we close out? We're not live for the game. We're not broadcasting it, so it's okay for us to give a little prediction.
Well, you know, of course, I'm always going to go for Murphy. That's whether that's hopeful or what. But the big key here is if they come in and they have a different spirit, different attitude than what they had last week at Cherokee. Watch the errors and get on it early. Then yeah, it could easily be 2-touchdown win for the Murphy Bulldogs easily.
And my thoughts are, if I have to predict, I'd predict that Murphy wins tonight. But part of me wonders, are they possibly looking forward to an even bigger game theoretically on their schedule next week with Robbinsville coming to town? And as you said, their spirit was a little down from Cherokee. I do think the Bulldogs win tonight, but I think it could be somewhere in the 10-point range. And similar to their game against Cherokee, if you keep Hazel within a score late in the game, all it takes is one long Caldwell reception in the fourth quarter to really put some fear into the Bulldogs, kind of like happened at Cherokee last week.
So you're kind of stepping into next week. Of course, I'd be like the players and say play it one game at a time. But since you mentioned it, I would say this. I would answer that question: is next week going to be a big game, or is it going to be a bigger game? And I think that really depends on what happens over in Cherokee this evening. Listening to some of the Robbinsville fans, though, they're really on a downward slope. They lost that game over in Tennessee at Lenoir City. And
or not Lenoir City. They beat Lenoir City, but they
sorry.
lost last week to
Broome. I'm sorry.
At home,
correct.
though. They lost to Broome at home.
Homecoming, all that good. So really tonight, can you lift the spirits and get out of the doldrums and win over Cherokee and then come here and play? I'll answer that question after they play in Cherokee this evening.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you joining me tonight, Brandon, for a little pregame show. And hey, folks, make sure you're checking out the Team FYN Sports Twitter and Facebook. We'll get some video out there. We'll get some definitely game score updates, not just from this game, but from all around the conference. And then, hey, stick around. Brandon Stevens and I will be going live once again after this game is over, and as long as the rest of the games finish, fairly quickly after this one, we'll try to get you updates from all around the conference. So make sure you're checking back for the Western North Carolina post-game show. But thanks for joining me tonight, Brandon.
Can I get? I've got a pen here, but if I can get your signature, it's like meeting a celebrity.
No. Jake West isn't here tonight, Brandon. I know he's watching it. The celebrity's Jake West. He's the director. So
what's he doing? Home trimming his beard or something like that?
No, he's important. He's got all kinds of, he's covering. We only cover one game at a time. Jake Webb covers 10 at a time. So, but we appreciate everyone that joined in to watch us tonight. We'll be signing off. Caleb Tom for Brandon Stevens. Enjoy your Friday night of football, folks.